Dear learners, today we will discuss a topic on laws of motion. We have already discussed about Newton's laws of motion, inertia, momentum and impulse in the previous session. Now we will apply these concepts to understand conservation of momentum, and we will also discuss another interesting phenomenon, that is friction. We will see that how much necessary friction is in our daily life. After completing this lesson, you will be able to explain the law of conservation of momentum and illustrate it with examples. You will be able to understand the concept of equilibrium of concurrent forces and define coefficient of friction and distinguish between static friction, kinetic friction and rolling friction. Suggest different methods of reducing friction and highlight the role of friction in everyday life. Let us first discuss conservation of momentum. It has been experimentally shown that if two bodies interact, the vector sum of their momenta remains unchanged, provided the force of mutual interaction is the only force acting on them. The same has been found to be true for more than two bodies interacting with each other. Now, coming to the law of conservation of momentum, generally a number of bodies interacting with each other are said to be forming a system. If the bodies in a system do not interact with bodies outside the system is said to be a closed system or an isolated system. You can see in the figure that body 1 and body 2 are two bodies which may interact with each other, but they together form a system which do not interact with the surrounding. Then only we can say that body 1 and body 2 form a system which is said to be a closed system or an isolated system. Now, what is law of conservation of momentum? In an isolated system, the vector sum of the momenta of bodies remains constant. This law states that the total momenta of the bodies inside an isolated system remains constant. Now, before coming to the application, there are some points which you should remember. The total momentum of the bodies in an isolated system remains unchanged, but the momentum of individual bodies may change in magnitude alone or direction alone, or both magnitude and direction may change. The momentum of individual bodies in an isolated system change due to mutual interactions and their strengths. Conservation of linear momentum is applicable in a wide range of phenomena such as collisions, explosions, nuclear reactions and radioactive decay, etc. Now, we can establish the conservation of momentum as a consequence of Newton's law. So, first we will establish conservation of momentum as a consequence of Newton's second law. According to Newton's second law of motion, the change in momentum delta p of a body when a force F acts on it for time delta t is given by delta p, that is change in momentum, is equal to F, that is force, into delta t, that is change in time or the time interval. So, now if force equal to 0, if no force is acting on that body or the net force on the body is 0, then putting F equal to 0 in the equation, we can get delta p equal to 0. That means change in momentum is 0. If change in momentum is 0, that means that momentum remains constant. So, when the force, net force acting on a body is 0, the momentum of the body will remain unchanged. Here we are discussing this for one body, and this can be extended to a system of bodies as well. Now, we will establish the conservation of momentum as a consequence of Newton's third law. So, consider an isolated system of two bodies A and B which interact with each other for time, suppose delta t. If FAB and FBA are the forces which they exert on each other, then in accordance with Newton's third law, FAB equal to minus of FBA, because Newton's third law states that action and reaction are equal in magnitude and opposite in directions. So FAB equal to minus of FBA, and the negative sign shows the opposite direction. So now in place of FAB we can write delta PA by delta T, because force is the rate of change of momentum. So for FAB we can write delta PA, which is the change in momentum of body A, divided by delta T, that is the time interval, is equal to minus of delta PB, which is the change in momentum of body B, divided by delta T. So now as delta T on both sides cancels, so we can write delta PA plus delta PB is equal to 0. Now delta PA plus delta PB equal to 0 means the delta P total, that is the total change in momentum of the system, is equal to 0. So we can write P total is equal to constant. That means if the change in momentum is 0, that means that no change is taking place, that means the total momentum remains constant. So we write P total, that is the total momentum of the system, remains constant. So the momentum of the system is conserved, which is the conservation of momentum. So we can establish the conservation of momentum from Newton's second law and Newton's third law as well. Now let us discuss what are the applications of conservation of momentum. The first application is recoil of gun. When a bullet is fired from a gun, the gun recoils. It is a very common experience, you might have seen it. So when the bullet is fired from a gun, before firing the bullet, the gun and the bullet both are at rest. That means momentum of the system. Here the bullet and the gun forms a system. So the total momentum of the system before firing was 0. That means after firing the momentum of the total system must be 0 according to conservation of momentum. Suppose small m is the mass of the bullet being fired and capital M is the mass of gun. V1 is the velocity of the bullet after firing and V2 is the velocity of the gun after firing. Because before firing both are at rest, that means velocity was 0. So now according to conservation of momentum, mv1 is the momentum of bullet and capital M V2 is the momentum of the gun. So the total momentum is equal to mv1 plus mv2, which should be or which is equal to 0 according to law of conservation of momentum, because before firing the total momentum was of the system was 0. So after firing the total momentum should be equal to 0. So mv1 plus mv2 equal to 0 or mv1 equal to minus of mv2 or v2 equal to minus mv1 divided by capital M. So this is how you can find out the recoil velocity of the gun after firing. So here the negative sign shows that the velocity of the gun, that is V2, is in a direction opposite to V1, and that means that the gun will move in the opposite direction of bullet, that is in backward direction. Since the mass of the bullet is very much less than the mass of the gun, that is why the recoil velocity of the gun will be considerably smaller than the velocity of the bullet. The velocity of bullet is very large, but the recoil velocity of the gun is smaller. The reason behind that is the mass of bullet is very much less than the mass of the gun, and you can find out this value from the equation given above. Now the next application of conservation of momentum is collision. In a collision, we may regard the colliding bodies as forming a system. You have seen in case of carom, you may be playing carom, and there the carom coins and the striker, between them collision happens many times. So here we will consider that the total carom as a the total coins and striker taking whole as a system. So now in the absence of any external force on the colliding bodies, such as the force of friction, the system can be considered to be an isolated system. So, now the forces of interaction between the colliding bodies will not change the total momentum of the colliding bodies. And you have seen this example or this type of collision in case of carom board and your billiard balls. So, these are the example of collision, and here the conservation of momentum takes place. The third application is explosion of a bomb. In case of the explosion of bomb, the bomb explodes into many fragments. Before the explosion, the bomb is at rest. So, the total, whatever may be the total momentum, that should be equal to the momentum of the total system or the total momentum of all the fragments after explosion. Suppose consider a bomb at rest initially which explodes into two fragments, that is A and B. That means before explosion the bomb was at rest, the total momentum was 0. So, after explosion, as it explodes into two fragments, the total momentum of the two fragments should be equal to 0. So, as the momentum of the bomb was 0 before the explosion, the total momentum of the two fragments formed will also be 0 after the explosion. Hence, the two fragments will fly off in opposite direction. And if the masses of the two fragments are equal, then the velocities of the two fragments will also be equal in magnitude. Fourth one is your rocket propulsion. A rocket consists of a cell with a fuel tank, which can be considered as one body. The fuel tank and the shell consist of or forms one system. The shell is provided with a nozzle. So, when we fire the rocket, the combustion of the fuel produces gases at very high pressure and also at very high temperature. Due to their high pressure, these gases escape from the nozzle at a high velocity and provide thrust to the rocket to go upward due to the conservation of momentum of the system. As the gases escape in the downward direction, the rocket goes in the upward direction, and this is only due to the conservation of momentum of the system. So, if capital M is the mass of the rocket, small m is the mass of the gas escaping per second, v is velocity of the gas escaping per second, then the change in momentum of the gas in t seconds is equal to m, that is the mass of gas escaping per second, v velocity of the gas escaping into t. If the increase in velocity of the rocket in t second is capital V, the increase in its momentum will be mass into velocity, that is capital M into capital V. So, according to the principle of conservation of momentum, the total momentum should be equal to the initial total momentum. So, that is mbt plus mb equal to 0, as before rocket propulsion it was at rest and the total momentum of the system was 0. So, now also the total momentum should be equal to 0. So, v by t equal to, as velocity by time equal to acceleration, v by t equal to a, which is equal to minus mb divided by capital M. So, acceleration equal to minus mv by m. This is how you can find out the acceleration of the rocket. Now, we will discuss equilibrium of concurrent forces. So, what is concurrent force? A number of forces acting simultaneously at a point are called concurrent forces. Concurrent forces are said to be in equilibrium if their resultant is 0. So, if F1, F2 and F3 be three concurrent forces acting at a point P. Here you can see in the figure F1, F2 and F3 are three forces, and all the three forces are acting at a single point simultaneously, that is at P. So, the resultant of F1 and F2 by parallelogram law of vector addition, it will be the diagonal of the parallelogram, that is the resultant will be shown by PA. Now, for equilibrium, the sum of F1 and F2, the two forces F1 and F2 must be equal and opposite to F3. That means F3 equal to minus of F1 plus F2, or F1 plus F2 plus F3 is equal to 0. So, we can say the sum of resultant of two forces must be equal and opposite to the third force in case of concurrent forces. So, for equilibrium, the vector sum must be 0. Now, we will talk another concept, that is friction, and friction largely affects the motion of a body. You may have noticed that when a batsman hits a ball to make it roll along the ground, the ball does not continue to move forever. It comes to rest after travelling some distance. Thus, the momentum of the ball which was imparted to it during initial push tends to be 0. We know that some force acting on the ball is responsible for this change in its momentum. Such a change, called the frictional force, exists whenever bodies in contact tend to move with respect to each other. It is the force of friction which has to be overcome when we push or pull a body horizontally along the floor to change its position. Force of friction is a contact force and always acts along the surfaces in a direction opposite to that of the motion of the body. Friction is caused by roughness of the surfaces in contact. That means, more the roughness, more will be the frictional force. Friction opposes the motion of the objects because the frictional force is always in the opposite direction of motion, and it causes wear and tear and is responsible for loss of mechanical energy. It is only due to friction that we are able to work, drive vehicle and stop moving vehicles. Otherwise, if there will be no friction, then we will not be able to work. Friction thus plays a dual role in our life. It is necessary for our life and also it causes evil to our life. It is therefore said that friction is a necessary evil. Now, let us discuss different type of friction. We all know that certain minimum force is required to move an object over a surface. For this, take one block or any object and put it on some horizontal surface. Let some external force, suppose F external, be applied on the block. Initially, you will see that the block does not move. This is possible only if some other force is acting on the block. That means, some force other than the applied force is acting on the block, and this force is called the force of static friction and is represented by symbol Fs. External force applied on the block is F external, and the force of static friction, the symbol is suppose Fs. As F external is increased, Fs also increases. That means, when you increase the applied force, then the frictional force of or force of static friction also increases and remains equal to the applied force, that is F external, in magnitude until it reaches a critical value, that is Fs maximum. Now, when it reaches the critical value, that is Fs maximum, then the F external is increased further. After reaching the Fs maximum, if you further increase the applied force, then the block starts to slide and is then subject to kinetic friction. When the block is moving, the force of friction applied on the body or acting on the object is known as force of kinetic friction. Force needed to set an object in motion is larger than the force needed to keep it moving at a constant velocity. You might have experienced it. So, the force of kinetic friction is less than the force of static friction. Now coming to static friction, the maximum value of static friction Fs between a pair of surfaces in contact is larger than the force of kinetic friction Fk between them. It is an experimental fact that Fs maximum, the critical value of static friction, is directly proportional to the normal force Fn, and Fs maximum is proportional to Fn, or Fs maximum equal to mu s Fn. That means here the proportionality sign is taken off by putting the equal sign, and there is a constant of proportionality, that is mu s. And what is this mu s? Mu s is the coefficient of static friction. Here you can see the graph between force of friction and the external applied force. Now Fn equal to mg, that is the normal reaction is equal to weight of the block, m is mass of the block and mg is weight of the block. Since Fs equal to F external, that is force of static friction equal to the external applied force for Fs less than Fs maximum, that is force of static friction less than critical force of static friction. So you can write Fs is less than mu s Fn. It has also been experimentally found that maximum force of static friction between a pair of surfaces is independent of the area of contact. Here you can see the maximum force of static friction does not depend upon the area of contact. Now coming to kinetic friction, similarly as we have written in static friction Fs equal to mu s Fn, in case of kinetic friction we can write the Fk equal to mu k Fn. That means force of kinetic friction Fk is equal to coefficient of kinetic friction into normal reaction Fn, and mu k is known as the coefficient of kinetic friction. In general, mu s is greater than mu k. That means coefficient of static friction is greater than the coefficient of kinetic friction, and these two coefficients, that is mu s and mu k, are not constants for any pair of surfaces such as wood on wood or rubber on concrete, etc. Value of mu s and mu k for a given pair of materials depend on the roughness of the surfaces, their cleanliness, temperature, humidity, etc. Now the third type of friction, that is rolling friction. It is a common experience that pushing or pulling objects such as carts on wheels is much easier. The motion of a wheel is rolling motion and is different from sliding motion. The friction in the case of rolling motion is known as rolling friction. For the same normal force, rolling friction is much smaller than sliding friction. That is why we normally use wheels when we have to move a heavier mass. For example, when steel wheels roll over steel rails, rolling friction is about 1/100th of the sliding friction between steel and steel. The typical values of coefficient of rolling friction mu r for steel on steel is 0.006, for rubber on concrete is 0.02 to 0.04. So you can see the coefficient of friction for rolling friction is very less. Now as friction causes many wear and tear and it produces heat, that is why we should reduce the amount of friction for the efficiency of the vehicles or engine or any instrument you are using. So how to reduce friction? The different method of reducing friction are: first one is your use a ball bearing reduces friction. Rolling is much easier than sliding, as you have seen. Because of this, ball bearings are used in machines to reduce friction. In a ball bearing, steel balls are placed between two coaxial cylinders, as you can see in the figure. Generally, one of the two cylinders is allowed to turn with respect to the other. Ball bearings are used in almost all types of vehicles and in electric motors such as electric fans, etc. Flow of compressed and purified air between the surfaces in contacts also reduces friction. It also prevents dust and dirt from getting collected on the moving parts. Use of lubricants such as grease oil between the surfaces in contact reduces friction considerably. It reduces frictional force between moving parts and also prevents them from getting overheated. Lubricants change the nature of friction from dry friction to fluid friction, which is considerably smaller than the former. This is all about friction. Now coming to frame of reference. To study motion in one dimension, one reference point is enough, which is known as origin. But in motions in 2 and 3 dimensions, a set of reference lines is required to specify the position of a point in space, and this set of lines is known as frame of reference. The different types of frame of reference are inertial frame of reference and non-inertial frame of reference. Every motion is described by an observer. The description of motion will change with the change in the state of motion of the observer. For example, a person standing on the platform and a box is lying on the platform. So, for the person who is standing on the platform, for him the box is at rest, but for a person in a train moving with uniform velocity v, the box is moving with velocity minus v. So, the two persons are viewing the same box or same object with different type. That means, as the two persons are in two frame of reference, that is why they are viewing the same object differently. But if a person is in a train which is moving with an acceleration a, he will see the box as moving with an acceleration of minus a. So, for this frame of reference or in this frame of reference, the first law of motion is failing for this observer. So, now we can differentiate what is inertial frame of reference and what is non-inertial frame of reference. If the frame is stationary or moving with a constant velocity with respect to the object, as we have seen in the case of box, the box is at rest on the platform and the person in the train is moving with a constant velocity. In that case, in this frame, law of inertia holds good. Therefore, such frames are called inertial frames. For non-inertial frame of reference, if the observer's frame is accelerating, then we call it non-inertial frame because the law of inertia does not hold good in this frame of reference. Now, let us summarize what we have discussed today. Hope you have understood what we have discussed today. Wishing you all the best. Thank you.